You are listening to Within Orb, and it's your host, Jenn Zahrt, here to tell you that it is our second birthday. That's right, Within Orb is now 2 years old. Can you believe it's been such an amazing journey? And today we have our 91st guest on the show. So I want to thank you for listening. If you haven't listened to the first year or the second, please do go back into the past episodes. They're evergreen. You're going to learn a lot of stuff about a lot of amazing books and a lot of amazing current living astrologers and how they think and what they love about astrology. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode with the inimitable Frank Clifford, who's done so much to help astrology book culture as a publisher, but also as the new publisher for the Mountain Astrologer, as well as someone who actually named Astro-Databank. So enjoy this episode with Frank. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to back episodes. Thank you for clicking like. Thank you for recommending it to your friends. Within Orb is apparently here to stay. Now that we're 2, it's going to be a wonderful wild ride. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. The Within Orb Podcast. Come get Within Orb. Welcome to another episode of Within Orb, and today we are going to one of my favorite cities on Earth and to talk to one of my favorite astrologers on the planet, Frank Clifford in London. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Hi there, Jen. Thanks for inviting me.
So you are quite a wealth of publishing, lineage, generation. I mean, you've done so much with astrology, but also with flair. You've contributed to the field. You've helped others contribute to the field. And just recently, you acquired the Mountain Astrologer, which is just such a brilliant move.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I truly appreciate what Tem did for 30 years and Ray did for 5 years. And I think had I taken it over 5 years ago, when Tem, or 7 years ago when Tem offered it to me, I would have probably be in the loony bin. I would have gone round the bend because it would have taken over my life. It would have steamrolled and it would have been a juggernaut. I wouldn't have been able to do so much with the LSA online and create the China School and all of that. So I'm very happy. I want to commend them both for setting up such an amazing body of work over all these years, but it feels like the right time to make it multimedia, to put it online, to do occasional issues as well, because I know people want the hard copy too. But yeah, it's an interesting development, just in time for Saturn and Neptune to come into my sign. So yes.
There you go. Yeah, give yourself a gauntlet, or a mountain to conquer here. But you had 10 years of editorial experience with Tem, making special issues and doing all sorts of brilliant things together with him. So it's very neat to see where you're going to take it.
He was an amazing man who was able to navigate or sidestep all the politics that we have in our work, in our profession. And I think he was just there. Stephen Forrest wrote to me recently and said TMA was like a watering hole where everyone could gather, regardless of their approach, their style, their house system,
right?
all of it. And I hope it's going to be the same, as much as it can be. We seem so divided at the moment, not just in astrology, but everywhere. It would be great to just be a welcoming watering hole again for people.
Yeah, well, one of the things I've heard about the upcoming Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 Aries and prior Saturn-Neptune conjunctions is spontaneous outbreaks of peace. So to feel the energy of the community rally around seeing TMA come back, I'm like, ooh, this is a nice spontaneous outbreak of a solace of a way,
I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that it stays that way.
Yeah, right? Okay, so let's just jump in. What was your first astrology book?
Well, I started reading astrology books maybe at the age of 14, like so many of us, really, really young. I went to my first astrologer at 16, Tad Mann. You may know him pretty well. He was living in London at the time. It was a full moon in August 1989, and it was a turning point in my life. And up until then, I'd really just picked up Linda Goodman's Sun Signs. I'd picked up her relationship book. I had a few other books, Bernard Fitzwalter on print, a couple of his books as well. But I think for so many people, it was two. It was the Linda Goodman Sun Signs book, and it was the Parker's Compleat Astrologer. The Parker's seemed rather rigid and British in that way, And Linda Goodman was just full of Neptune rainbows and unicorns and dreams, and that really appealed to the Aries in me. And she was a double Aries, so I wanted to be what she wrote about. And I thought, well, I want to be that. In fact, I was more of a moon in Virgo at the age of 14 and 15, and I still am. But back then, I loved what she said about Aries, and that's what I felt I was born to be. But I just wasn't there just yet.
So when you were reading this, did you think, I'm going to be an astrologer too? Or was it more like, I'm going to be involved with astrology, but not necessarily become one?
Probably neither. I think I read it and felt I was going to be in film or writing or directing. I was very into the media at that point. I then ended up going to college and doing a media degree. So I had very different aspirations, but astrology has a habit of taking over your life, doesn't it, Jen?
I want to know that inflection point. What time, how did it grab you?
Where it changed, or
when you knew, like, oh no, here it is, I've got to become an astrologer.
probably about 3 weeks ago. I don't know. I learned astrology with a book in one hand, like a biography, and a chart in the other. And that's how I learned it. And that's how I still learn astrology. And it's my favorite thing to do, is to study what somebody says, how they approach life, what their maybe a biography writes about them, and be looking for it in the chart and say, well, how do they fit? How do they connect? That's always been my style. So I did a 3-year degree in film and television and all of that. Theatre, film and television, I think it was called. And I came out of it feeling, it's so tedious. Everyone around me, I just I just didn't enjoy the course very much. And I think it put me off the idea of going into television. And probably I was already reading hands. I'm a hand reader as well. I've been, I think I started astrology at 16 after that visit to Tad Man. And then a year later, I went to a palm reader. So I was learning both of those subjects. And I was studying both of those and even teaching both of those while I was at university. And I think that's probably the crossover moment then somewhere. I don't like the competitive industry of television where people would sell their grandmother just to get something. I didn't, even as an Aries, that wasn't my style.
That's awesome. I love that you also bring in the lineage of hand reading, because in the early 20th century, that was very much present as astrology was coming back out from the underground.
It was indeed, yes. And haven't you written about that as well?
I have not written about handwriting, but I have written about Elsbeth Ebertine, who began as a graphologist, or not palm reading. I'm getting graphology and chiromancy mixed up, but
Me too, yeah.
but yeah, it's present there, like this, and then even today, even in India, the first time you see anybody as an astrologer, they'll pull your palm out and take a look.
They still do that to me. When I tell people I'm an astrologer, they'll put their hand out expecting me to read. And I say, oh, I can do that too. But what it is about, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of underground, though, so we're going to take you out to somewhere secluded, maybe just like a henge. We're going to go on a day trip to some sort of remote henge circle, maybe in the north of Scotland or something. And you can only take 3 books with you. What are you going to take on this remote trip?
Well, I'm going to take a scarf and a big coat.
Okay.
My friend Kira Sutherland has just come back from there, and she was staying with me, and she was freezing her lovely California stroke Sydney behind off. So, yeah, I would definitely, if the books got boring, I would probably end up wearing them or turning them into a coat. But there are 3. I mean, I grew up, as I say, with astrology from early teens, started teaching myself and still teaching myself from the age of 16. But when I discovered, I think it was called Electric Ephemeris back then, it was a graphic program, but also it was at the Caledonian Road in London. And I went in and looked at some astrology books. And, you and I just need to look at our backgrounds to know how many books that we love and we treasure. And I think all astrologers have more books than they'll ever read. And I picked up Lois Rodden's book, Profiles of Women. And that was just a treasure trove of biographies and charts. And I remember just buying, she had a 5-volume set, couldn't get all of them. I remember trying my very best. I heard of the Gokelan Book of American Charts as well. So years later, Lois and I became friends in the, it must have been sort of early 90s maybe, and she was revising profiles of women. And she did everything herself. She self-published, she edited, all of that. Even, I think she did some of the layout as well. And I said to her, this is a one-time offer only. I said, if you want to send me the book, I will add dates, I will edit it, I will improve it with information, dates, data, all of that. And I had so many reference books. And so over the weeks, over the months, she sent me the new volume of Profiles of Women, which now, of course, is all on Astro-Databank. And I contributed to it, and I sent it back. And when I finally got to meet her, I think in 95 or 96, there was a copy waiting for me in her home in Yucaipa in California. So that would be a book I would always take. It's got about maybe 450, 500 profiles, plus the charts. That would just be heaven for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we have a copy of a hand-annotated proof in her own handwriting.
Oh, wow, wonderful.
At CAELi. So when you come visit, you can check out what she was. I mean, you worked with her on it. I had no idea that you did that. That's amazing. And yeah, you
Is
can
that
see
the new version, the one, or was it the original that you've got?
It was the original, and she has a lot of handwritten notes about what she would change and all kinds of feedback.
Oh,
for
wonderful,
herself.
wonderful. She was a treasure. Yeah, interesting lady. Yeah, not easy, but she was a treasure.
Yeah.
A character, shall we say. And so, yes, I helped her with the second edition. Obviously, the first one was back in I think it was 1980 or maybe even late 70s, I'm not sure. But yes, so I got very involved with data research. So I would always take a data book. I've created data books myself, and those were the other two. So I'd probably I did a book called British Entertainers back in the mid-90s. I was laughing today with somebody I was talking to about Saturn in Aries. And looking back, the last time Saturn was in Aries, which would have been in 1996 to 1999, around that time. And that's, of course, when I developed my publishing company and when I wrote the first book, British Entertainers. So looking back, it really feels like a new publishing cycle for me.
Sure.
So I'd probably grab one of my own books, of course, and then start editing it. Or I'd
Wait, you're not allowed to work on this vacation.
There were pencils
No,
around,
I'm kidding.
erasers. I might do that, and I did a book of music horoscopes as well. So one of those, all three data books, if I were allowed. Yeah,
Sure. And then would you be? I mean, since it's been a whole Saturn cycle since the first edition of British Entertainers, you have a lot of editions to make now.
we do. Well, I try to put some of them in the book of music horoscopes, knowing that I probably wouldn't get around to doing that. And I get occasional emails from people saying, I bought your book and I'm so disappointed. The second edition was 2003 and you haven't updated it. And, I've been busy.
Right.
After that edition, I took over the LSA in 2004. So my life in the last 21 years has been teaching, producing, plus everything else, plus a lot of writing and publishing. But no, I haven't got around to it. I'd like to one of these days, but no.
Yeah.
Another lifetime.
Exactly. I have an idea of what you feel like. Imagine stepping into a room of 5,000 astrology books, turning a corner and stepping into a room of 2,000 more. The Celestial Arts Education Library is every astrologer's dream, and it can be yours. I invite you to come support CAELi before you can visit physically. Your support will mean the creation of 52 new episodes of Within Orb next year, 4 issues of the CAELi Review, our inaugural journal, and countless book talks, events, classes for our community. Visit our website, www.caeli.institute/support, to select your level of care. Please help support CAELi into the future, our future, so that we may study the future together. Thank you for listening. Please enjoy the rest of the show. Well, it takes a lot of energy to compile those data books, no? And what's the experience of making a resource like that?
It was interesting. I can tell you something I've never told anybody, if you like. While I was compiling it, I was also invited to do the Solar Fire compendium. And I had a moment of ego there, more than I normally have, and I called it the Clifford Data Compendium. And I thought, well, I should do that. And it was a good choice because people knew the name but didn't know me at that point. So it was it was a good choice to do that. And at the same time, I put the book together, the British Entertainers book, and it ruffled a few feathers because the established data people, including Lois, were a little bit upset that I would do my own book and create the Solar Fire Compendium. So at the time, the energy was share and share alike. And then when you do something like an Aries would in their own way, or you and I both got Mars on the midheaven, haven't we?
We do.
We know being the young upstart, they may upset the apple cart a little bit. And it did. And I remember Lois being quite upset that I didn't work for her. I worked for Solar Fire for a little bit. So then I started to realize about the politics in astrology sometimes and how to navigate that if I could. But it was great as a resource, and always been very vigilant with data, doing my best always to collect it. I've got a good 1,000 birth certificates in a folder behind me, in various folders, and that's always been a great part of it. And I was collecting before I was teaching. I spent my 20s doing all of that and studying my craft, because it took my Saturn return before I dared to stand up and even speak as an astrologer. I was just too terrified. And also, there were so many brilliant minds in astrology, Jen. You know, if you're going to write a book, if you're going to put something out there, you are going to be on the shelves with Alan Okin, Melanie Reinhart, Liz Green, Stephen Arroyo, How to Support Us, 1,001 brilliant minds, or 101 brilliant minds. And so I kept quiet for a number of years. And in England, they don't care about that. In America, they Jupiter you. You're the next best thing, and they elevate you. In England, it's very Saturn. It's like, oh, hi, come in, didn't know you were here. That suited me with Saturn rising. That suited me. I kept my head down for a long time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was in the closet in academia while you were in my 20s, comparable to yours as well. So I wasn't able to out myself as an astrologer after the Saturn return. But, here we are. And I love to see that you have such a strong presence in the data category, because it's a very, very important thing to have it physical. Inside the software on the databank that everyone can search online is great, but we need our paper. We need the technology of the book.
We do. And Astro-Databank, I named Astro-Databank, by the way. Not that that's a big deal, but I said to Lois, call it Astro-Databank, and she did. And it's such an amazing resource. I do find myself sneaking on there and thinking, oh, I want to update that, and not having the time to. But it is an amazing resource. And my friend Cy Schofield, who contributes thousands and thousands of data, or has done over the years, he does it all for me. He does all the stuff that I maybe would have done had I not bought the school and done other things. Yeah.
Right. Well, it takes a village, right? I mean, and we all do our part. So that's amazing. All right. So speaking of the village, you have the LSA, which has grown substantially. I want you to say the number. How many students are in your school?
We have 14,000 on our books that are doing something with us at some point.
I love that. That is so cool.
Yeah, and it's growing since I announced the TMA. People are coming in and stuff, but it's obviously a smaller amount who are actually studying with us week in, week out. Some schools you have to start at the beginning and you have to take exams to get on to the next level. My feeling was, come in when you're ready, at the point that feels right for you, and join and contribute and be part of it. You don't have to be pigeonholed into 101 and then move forward. So I think it's helped to be flexible in that way.
Absolutely. Maybe another Mars Midheaven conjunction leadership style.
Maybe.
You come in and
yours
do
is
something.
in fire, isn't it? Mine's in air, so it's probably a different energy. But I do love them. I love my Mars on the midheaven. I think it does a great service for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So when someone comes up to you and says, "I want to start learning astrology," what books would you tell them to read?
Yes, if they're learning astrology. If they're not, if they're just interested in astrology, I might send them somewhere else.
Just don't do this.
Sort of sun sign book. And I'm always saying to people, don't read too much online because you'll get scared. I had a phone call a while back from a woman who rang the school. She'd just given birth, and she looked up the child's chart somewhere, put it in the details, and the child had Uranus in the 8th house, like 1 in 12 of us do. And it said in the interpretation, death by electrocution. So can you imagine how anxious she was? And, she's going to have a child that does what every other child does, is to go near plugs and sockets and all sorts of things, or being in a bath. I couldn't comprehend how anxious she must have felt. And I sat there for a good half an hour trying to explain that we've got to choose our websites well. But to a novice, what do they call him in Harry Potter?
Muggle.
Muggle. Yeah. A muggle. I just had to say, look, it's somebody taking Uranus, which is electricity and technology, and the eighth house, which, amongst other things, is death and transformation, and putting two and two together to get something that's like 5.5, and it's very misleading. So, yes, that's a roundabout way of answering your question. I sort of move away from, I get people to move away from going online. So getting a book or downloading a book is really good. The three that I would recommend, I'd recommend the Contemporary Astrologer's Handbook, not just because it's Sue Tompkins and her work with aspects in astrology is a fabulous book. I published the Contemporary Astrologer's Handbook, and it's her complete manual. And I think people can learn at whatever level they're at, they can learn something from it. It's really, really amazing. The other book I liked, and I'm in touch with one of the authors now. It's called The Knot of Time. I think it's called The Knot of Time, The Astrology of Female Experience. But it's for everybody, of course. I think it was just written by two women who wanted to really, corner that market. So it's a beautiful book of signs, houses, planets, and just a really insightful psychological volume full of different cookbook interpretations. I really like that. I bumped into one of the authors at the astrology shop in London, and she thought the book had been dead and buried for years. And I said to her, "Oh, I can't believe it's you. I recommend that to my students." And later, I'm on Facebook with Lindsay River, and we republished for TMA a few years back a part of that book as well, the cycle of that. So that's a beautiful book. And there's another one, of course, the Cosmic Loom by Dennis Elwell. And Dennis Elwell, you mentioned before we started that he isn't too well known in America, and maybe not too well known anywhere else but England. But he was one of the great minds of astrology. Contrary in a great way, fascinating man. Only met him once or twice. I went to the relaunch of his Cosmic Loom book at the astrology shop in Covent Garden, and he just a clever man. And Cosmic Loom is for the thinking astrologer, to think about the pattern of not just what does my chart say, what does this position mean. You can step back and start to see the connections. Now, Dennis Elwell, many years ago, you'll know this, of course, he was trying to find ways of promoting the book. So he was starting to look at the mundane picture. I think it was 1986, 87, around that time. And of course, he wrote to Cunard, which is the vessel company that has the ships, and warned them of a particular date. And that date, that period of time, that short period of time, was when the Herald of Free Enterprise sank. It was a terrible disaster, and he became the media's darling for a very short while of having predicted that. He did a correspondence course, and I wish I'd taken that, but it folded by the time I knew of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a confession to make. You know how sometimes you need to go to the doctor and you're going to sit in a waiting room and you need something to read that maybe isn't on your phone. I keep a copy of Cosmic Loom in my car for those
Wow.
times when I need an emergency book because I don't want to be on my phone while I'm waiting around for something. So,
Well, the book I would have mentioned, but I didn't because I didn't want to keep promoting my own books, was the Astrology in the Year Zero, which you're helping to rebirth.
well, it's not yours anymore. Now it's from Sophia Center
It's
Press.
not exactly, exactly. But I haven't seen it yet, so I'm still got my white version. Still got a few copies in the garage here, and that was a great project to be involved with because I remember sitting with Gary. It must have been 1998 or 99, maybe at the beginning, and originally the book was a book of interviews. And I said to him, "I know you've done all of this work, but would you consider turning them into chapters with themes?" And so it was great to have that input to create a book that I think is still stands to this day.
Oh, it's a classic. Yes, absolutely.
It's wonderful. So yes, that would be another one. It might even be a desert island book, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, you do have a lot of data in there, but it's not birth data. But
No.
it is one of the only books that describes how astrologers actually do what they do in a way that's digestible for the practitioner and the skeptic.
True. The only criticism I had at the time of it, if I may say so, is that I think his deal with the skeptics meant that he wasn't allowed to edit anything. It sort of railroaded some of the book with the, as we know, rather close-minded or rather fixed opinions about astrology. So,
ironically, the skeptics wanted him to edit this version of it, so it come full circle.
Good.
And he decided not to.
Oh, okay.
Told them no.
Okay, interesting. But it's a great book, so it'd be one of mine, I'd say to somebody. I also love Neil Spencer's book as well, True as the Stars Above.
That is a good one.
But you only asked for 3, so...
oh, no, top books you can say as many as you want. It's just you can only take 3 with you to the island, so...
I've been encouraging Neil to get that in ebook, to update it, and get it out again. Neil, again, is a brilliant writer. And do you know Neil?
I met him once at a company event, yeah.
He's, and his book, do you know his book?
Yeah, it's great. But I also, again, I think it's one of those ones that is very popular in England and very not known enough in the United States. So, True as the Stars Above.
Well, I'm hoping he'll give me a chapter for TMA or something, because I love it and I'd love to support the book because he's a very erudite. I loved it, yeah.
Yeah. There should be a sort of shelf of thinking astrologers' books because they're philosophically bound and there's sort of...
I do. I have actually a shelf behind me just of the books that are the real thinking astrologer books.
I want that shelfie. Can I get a shelfie?
Indeed. Sure.
So anyway, let's wrap up. I know you're busy and I don't want to keep you too long. So where can people find you and TMA and LSA and all of the other lovely acronyms that you're involved with?
Thank you. The easiest place is to go to londonschoolofastrology.com, and the TMA is now under that umbrella because it's much easier. It already has the people there waiting. So there's a community there for TMA, community for the students, but also there's a lot of teaching resources and a lot of freebies as well. I'm a big freebie person. I feel that if anything, people ask you, what do you want your legacy to be? No one's ever asked me that. I'm obviously looking a little bit too young to be asked that.
Wait, hold on. What do you want your legacy to be, Frank?
Oh, hang on. I hadn't thought about the answer to that. What I would say is, drum roll, is, I'd like to be remembered as somebody that was generous with their time, their resources, all of those things. I think that makes such a difference. When you encounter people that are rather protective of their work, and we need to be at times, particularly with AI, etc., but overly protective and don't want to share that, I think, what are you waiting for? You're going to die with the book in your purse, and be buried with it. Who knows? So my feeling is, the more you give, there'll be some people that don't appreciate it or take it, but they're in the minority. The more you give, particularly with freebies, opportunities to jump on board and learn something, the more it benefits everyone. I remember Melanie Reinhart saying years ago to me that when she discovered that her Chiron book was being sold on the black market as an ebook, somebody had scanned it in, etc., and she was Mars in Taurus irate about it, as I would be as well, and she put all that energy in, and it was now being given away online at the time. And I said to her, the only thing you can be hopeful for is that it will land in the right hands and do some good work for people, because we can't stop that. So the generous spirit, I think, is something that we all need, particularly with astrology, where there's a lot of information out there that's problematic, it's scary, like the Uranus in the 8th house, stuff online that people write about with seeming authority. And the better books, the better magazines and articles that you can give people, and the more varied as well, the better their education will be, and they won't be scared witless by somebody's dumb comment.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you for spending time at Within Orb.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to Within Orb. If you loved this episode, share it with your friends, give it 5 stars, leave a comment. In Spotify, you can do that now. To learn more about the CAELi Institute and perhaps become a member or take a lab that we teach, please go to CAELi.institute. That's CAELi.institute. Thanks again to the E-Block Band for providing our intro and outro music, and also to Jen Brown of JJ Boots Productions for being an excellent producer. If you would like to have a podcast be edited like Within Orb, reach out to Jen. This is Jenn Zahrt, signing off for now. See you next week.